Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and before we get started, if you want to know exactly how to win again and again, go to weidelonwinning.com/webinar now to watch something I've put together for you. Now let's get going into this episode of Million Dollar Mastermind. I am with Bryan Clayton. And Bryan is an exciting entrepreneur, Nashville, Tennessee, doing great things in his first business, which is lawn care. And he's taken the suggestion his dad had when he was growing up, go out, make some money, cut some grass, and turn that into a career. And he has evolved as the industry and technology has evolved. And so, Bryan, I'm excited to follow up with you on the exciting new ideas, of taking a new company and executing, learning what you didn't know with new technology and executing that new idea. You said it's a good thing I didn't know what I didn't know, because otherwise I wouldn't have done it. That's the story of every entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And I'm real curious, Bryan, let's talk about, you ran into the wall there. And that happens, the biggest hedge funds in the world today are started by people that were in investing, financial services, had a network of friends, and they figure, oh, okay, I'll go out and I'll start my own hedge fund. They go out there and it's crickets. They find nobody's interested in them. They think I had all these friends with all this money. It's like, well, you're not proven. Over here you had all this backing and this, that, and the other, and they've got to get out there and grovel and be creative and put out 200 door hangers, in their $10,000 suits, that version of that. You hear all these stories all the time, even with BlackRock, and so it's the norm that you think that because the industry, how it works, the people, you feel like you're going to know how to start a new business, but then you run into the big concrete wall of the unknown. And these are the things you've got to learn if you're going to start this new business, because all of the new businesses there have some kind of twist to them. You're either going to be like everybody else and just a good version of everybody else, or you're going to come up with something either with just a slight twist or a whole new thing. And you kind of came up with a whole new thing in a basic service that people have always needed to have done. And it's being done in one way or another, but you came up with this new idea and you thought, piece of cake, this is going to spread all over the country. People are going to instantly see it, because you saw it. And then you found out, no, people are dumber than mud. They do not see it. I mean, they might be geniuses, but their brain is already full of what they're thinking about. They're not seeing through my eyes the potential of this thing and how great it could be for them. And so then we got to go through the motions of explaining it to and figure out how to explain it to a lot of people so we can find our client base. I saw a thing, one of the nature, I got a new, one of the new OLED TVs that I'm watching, the colorful programs. And I was watching one of the nature things, and was talking about, it had a tiger, a Bengal tiger, and it showed the hunt and everything. And it said the tiger only succeeds. This is a tiger now, only succeeds 1 out of 10 times.
Yeah, that's a tiger.
That's a tiger, and so when we go out there, don't expect to be, anybody to have any sympathy for you. This is just the way it is throughout the world, from animals to people. You got to prospect, you got to earn your way. And you went out there, talk about how you went through that thought process and learned those things, got them in place? How fast was it? How frustrating was it?
Yeah, extremely challenging, because you approach the problem and you approach the solution from a preset set of assumptions, and a lot of those assumptions are based in your experience, and they aren't necessarily the case for the customer. And so there's a big gap between company logic and customer logic. And so the only kind of roadmap you have, if you will, when you're inventing a product from scratch, is customer feedback. That's the only thing you have that can guide you to building something that people want to use, will keep using, and keep patronizing, and pay for. And so if you're not willing to solicit that customer feedback, make it really simple, like removing all of the friction for them to be able to speak with you and tell you where you stink, and tell you what you wish, what they wish that you would do for them, well, then you're kind of just relying on luck. And so and for us, we were reading a book called The Startup Owner's Manual by an author named Steve Blank in those days. And that's all that book is about, is what they call get out of the building. It means just get out of your office and go meet face to face with the early adopting users and customers that you have for your product. And as simple as that sounds, most entrepreneurs don't do it because the feedback hurts. We think our customers are stupid. It's not what we want to hear. It's not the easy thing to do. And so we don't ever do it. And that's why 95% of startups fail. One of the reasons. And so, like you said earlier, you have to get that first minimal viable product out the door, get it in the hands of customers, and then start talking to them, get the feedback, improve the product, and rinse and repeat. And if you're willing to do that for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, you can make something from scratch that people will use, and more importantly, continue to use. That it will keep sticking around and retain. And because if you can't do that, then you don't have a product worth scaling. And these things sound simple, but they're kind of going back to Warren Buffett. A lot of his strategies are simple too. They're just not they're not fun to execute, and they're not the things that we gravitate towards. But if you're willing to do them and do them long enough, you can create a product from scratch that will succeed.
Talk about the timetable there, because every step. I remember when we were starting our business, Art Williams used to tell us that every nightmare, every delay, every step you go through, he said, be glad, because the people who want to compete against you, they're going to have to go through all those steps too. Right. And every time you make it through to another level, you've separated yourself from the masses, you've elevated yourself. And so talk about, you said years, you didn't say, because, right now we would like to be like, okay, we got to get my website changed. Somebody come in and redesign it. Bam, 2 days later, new website. And, right. Years.
Years. Literally years.
So talk about those years now to get that feedback, and then how you worked your way through making these changes.
So that's kind of what entrepreneurship is. It's going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And so just continually just to grind it out. We our first year, we ended up with like $12,000 in total revenue and 20 customers, half of them my friends and family. And but we had enough validation to know, okay, this is worth spending the next 5 years on, because if we can make it work in this one neighborhood, we can make it work in all of Nashville. And if we can make it work in all of Nashville, then we could probably make it work in the Southeast. And if we can make it work in the Southeast, then we can do it nationwide. And just really kind of like looking at how you envision the future to be, and then working backwards from that, and laying it out into small attainable wins, and just working that process over and over and over again. And then those small numbers begin to compound, and you get a little bit of a snowball effect. And so for us, it was difficult because we were self-funded. We bootstrapped the thing off its own revenue. So we were executing all this stuff. And so it was like we were teaching ourselves how to build software while improving the product. And we were also having to do the marketing at the same time and teach ourselves a search engine optimization strategy, and really try to learn how to do that stuff at the same time while we were building the product. And so this concept of work-life balance, particularly in the early days of starting a business, I think is bad advice, because you're going to be working 6, 7 days a week, because half the time you're working on the business, and then the other half of the time you need to be learning. Like, you need to be listening to podcasts like this one. You need to be watching everything on YouTube that you can that relates to your industry. You need to be going to conferences. You need to be reading all the books. You need, like, there's only so many hours in a week, and like half of the time is literally going to be learning the skills you need to execute, because odds are you don't have them yet. At least I know I didn't. And so it just took a very, very, very long time to get the momentum going for our little marketplace, and to get it out. We spent 4 years just in Nashville trying to get it to where it would work reliably, to where when somebody hired a lawn care service, they actually showed up on the day they were supposed to and actually did a good job. And figuring out like the motivations behind the users on both sides of the transaction to satisfy the demands that each of them had. It just took a long time, a lot of trial and error.
Well, I remember one of the early days of the Shark Tank, and they had this nice young lady on, and she had some idea, and she didn't have many sales, and they all the blah blah blah, and it came down to where, well, you need to get to trade shows and let people see it. At least get to the trade shows and find some other distributors. And she said, "Yeah, I know, but I'm just shy."
Not an excuse. Not an excuse.
I'm just an introvert, she said, and Mark Cuban.
Not an excuse. And that's one of the beautiful things about business is that it will force you to confront those fears. It'll force you to level up, force you to overcome those things.
And that's the deal that's when you're going to find out if there is fire in your belly for this idea or not.
Right.
Do you really want it enough to make those changes or to make that learning? And now for you guys, you sound like you're a bunch of action people, go here, do this, hands-on, but then to sit down in front of a computer and learn that boring nitpick. It's not, most of the computer work is not hard, but it is boring and tedious and repetitious. And for you to make that shift had to be rough on your system.
It was definitely a gut check moment. And it was a moment of, do I really want this bad enough? Because now when I started the company, I thought it was going to be a 2-year thing and we would just be nationwide. And then once we got in there, I realized, no, this is a 10-year thing. And it was kind of a learning moment for myself personally. And I realized something about myself. It was almost like, well, I'm not going to not be in business because I need to I need to be in the game. I'm wired to love the game. And I'm always going to be working on my best idea. And fortunately, I'm not terribly creative. This is my best idea, is, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. So we're just going to stick with this. And that was what kept me and my co-founders in the game for the first 5 years. It was like, well, by default, it's too late to turn back now. We're just going to keep working our butts off and moving it forward, however slow, and however long it takes is however long it takes. And that was what we needed.
Now, talk about how the numbers climbed, okay, and the years involved, from how long did you go, and did it come in a surge, did it as a steady growth, was there a breakthrough? Talk about the returns on your efforts. It's like, it's when it started to work, it's like, praise the Lord, it's gonna work, and it's starting to trickle in. There's some gold dust, glittering in the pan there. So, well, let's just say, what was the sign for you that this thing actually was going to work?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It was little glimmers of hope, and for us, the numbers were really small, but at least they were doubling every year. And there was the day I knew it was going to work, I think was maybe year 2 or maybe even year 3. It was a Saturday that my 2 co-founders and I were in the office working like we were every Saturday. And something like 40 people signed up that Saturday. And I did not personally know who any of them were. And that was a big moment, because up until then, it was very much like grassroots hustling up people, like, passing out flyers, talking to customers, getting referrals. But this was a day in which It was a Saturday, and this 30 people signed up. I didn't know them. And I thought, wow, if we can take that number and times it by 10 in every major city in the United States, then we can build a real business. And so it was just one of those things. We knew if we could continue to double, continue to grow the numbers exponentially, that it would take off.
So you finally ran out of friends and relatives? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
yeah. That's exactly what happened.
like that?
And
Did someone
and
marry? Did someone marry a new wife that I didn't hear about here?
yeah, that strategy ran out of gas, and we had to figure out another way to get the word out. And it was when we started seeing that work, to where we knew we could do X, Y, and Z and get a result. That was when I knew it would work.
You really, the advice there that we, for those coming up is you really want to work like a maniac towards that point in your
really
career. And you need to know it's going to be a specific point that inside yourself, okay, I can make this work. I have proved to myself this thing can work. And from then on, it's just a matter of time and effort and compounding, and it takes what it takes. But the doubt and the fear and the paranoia and the trauma you go through, that changes, because now
absolutely.
all the energy can go into the forward thrust. But that's a big deal. It is a specific thing, isn't it?
And it's that moment, it's maybe a moment in a chess game when you've won, and you see it, and maybe your opponent doesn't. And not that business can be a zero-sum game like chess, but it is a moment, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. That that you're going to win, and that it might take another 5 years, but at least that if you keep doing what you're going to do, nobody can take it from you, and that you're going to win. And to use chess as another analogy, there's not one move on the board that wins the whole game. It's a progression, a series of things that you've done right day in, day out for many years that compound and build on each other. And it's literally a snowball that begins to build that momentum. And once you see that compounding take hold, you then know, okay, yeah, this is going to work. It's going to be a lot more hard work, but at least I know I've got something that's going to work.
And talk about how the compounding went after that.
Yeah, you try to create little goals that are attainable, and if you can double them over and over and over again, that you'll have a real business. And so for us, the first year we wanted to do 100 transactions in a week, and we knew if we could get 100 transactions in a week, then we could get to 500, and we knew then we get to 500, we get to 1,000. The first year we didn't hit that; we only got to 70. But it was close enough to know, okay, well, we know we'll hit it the next year. And so then the next year we hit 300, we tripled. And then the year after that, we hit 1,000. And the year after that, we hit 2,500. And the year after that, we hit 5,000. And then the year after that, we hit 10,000. And so if you create those little goals and you celebrate them along the way, and you know that they are doubling over a period of time, well, then it's just basic math. And that is reassuring to give you the ambition and reassure yourself that it's worth putting in the 6 and 7 days a week. It's worth the sacrifices, because if you just keep going, you'll eventually get there.
When you say you'll have a real business, describe in your mind, what would you say, what is a real business?
That can be different for many people. For some people, it might just mean $3,000 a month in passive income, and they can travel the world, and that's a great goal. For other people, it might mean that they want to have $100 million business or $1 billion business. For me, a real business was one that was profitable, that was doing at least $1 million a year. And I didn't think we had a business until we had that. And because my last business was doing 10 million a year, and I knew we had to do at least $1 million a year in revenue. And if we couldn't get that by a certain date, and we couldn't see indications that would eventually happen, that we were not on the right track. And so I think if, my opinion is, if you've got a good team, you're profitable, you're able to pay salaries, you're able to pay all of your vendors and make at least $1 million a year, then you've got a real business.
Bryan, I can't remember when I've had time fly faster. This has been so much fun. I'm going to give you one final word for entrepreneurs on the way up that, they might already have a business, but they're ready for a new breakthrough. They're ready to push it to another level. What would the final word be for them?
I just read a book by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. And one thing that book talks about is that just to look at business like an infinite game, to look at it like this is just the thing that I'm doing, putting my life's energy into, my life's force. And this is the reason I'm getting out of bed in the morning. And if you look at business that way and look at it like an infinite game, as this is going to be a 5, 10, 20-year deal, that can help take care of a lot of the day-to-day BS. Another thing that's kind of helped me is like business isn't the source of my passion, but it is the source of my purpose. And so asking yourself the question, if it weren't for me, then what? If it weren't for me, X. And so there's different points in my life in business. I've been able to ask myself that question. If it weren't for me, well, then there's 23 people that depend on this company for a paycheck. If it weren't for me, I've got these stakeholders that have put their backing behind the business and they'll be let down. If it weren't for me, then there's lawn care services that use our technology to run their business, and then that will get all screwed up. And so a lot of these like little things have been handled by bigger questions like that then enable me to guide my decisioning and my execution at the tactical level. And so if you're struggling in business or looking for a reason to level up the next thing, maybe those things can help you. If it weren't for me, X, and how your business can be the source of purpose in your life.
And thanks so much for all of this great insight. Where are you locked in now as your business goals? What are you most excited about doing next?
You get to a certain point in business and it's easy to look back and say, wow, we made it. But I swear to you, like, it still feels like day one. Like it really, like 8 years in, we're doing good, we're profitable, we're growing. But we have so much further to go. The lawn care business is a $99 billion industry, and we have a long, long way to go until like we're kind of in like the ubiquitous, like everyday way that you would get this done along the same lines as a Uber or Lyft or an Instacart or a DoorDash. Then we're not done. We got a long way to go. So we're just going to continue to keep our heads down, continue to work, continue to double this thing every year.
You guys have got to be thinking in terms of hundreds of millions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hundreds of millions.
Definitely the case. And it's totally doable.
Yeah. And that's going to be fun. And the thing is, if your eye is on it, you can get there so much faster than you possibly could imagine. It's going to be fun to just see how big this thing can get, Bryan, because I know with the momentum you've got now and the foundation that's in place, you are set up for long-term success. Let's get together down the road and talk about all the new things you're getting ready to learn going forward, because I've really enjoyed this and wish you the best.
Well, Larry, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on to share my story.
If you enjoyed what you've heard and are dead serious about finding out for yourself exactly how this works in the real world, I've taken the most valuable business lessons I've learned over 40 years and put them into something for you to watch. Go to whiteelementary.com/webinar now in order to move up as fast as possible. I'm Larry Weidel, and I run the $1 Million Mastermind. Go, go, go.